This is Slee Ricketts, a podcast about poetry and other intractable problems. My name is Alice. I'm filling in for Matthew this week, and this week's conversation is between Matthew and one Ernie Hilbert. You might remember Ernie from his previous appearance on the show. You probably know him as a poet, and you may know him as a poetry event and reading organizer and MC. And that is what Ernie is here to discuss. He sent Matthew and I an email about a month ago. The title of the email, subject line was, "I'm keeping this off social media, but you might like it." And it was a link to an article published in the Times Literary Supplement, no less, titled Poetry Readings I Have Known. Ernie has been doing this work for a long time. He has seen it all. He has seen poets try to perform their poems via their phone and not really know how the phone works. He has seen the military police come to break up a reading. He has endured an incident with a pineapple that you have to read to believe. And I'm so glad that he took the time to write all this down. I've done this work a little bit myself, and I had no idea how bad it could get. I really feel like I've had it very easy compared to what Ernie's been through. But all of us know that poetry readings can go wrong in all kinds of different ways, and sometimes they can go catastrophically wrong. And I enjoyed hearing Matthew and Ernie talk about this, and also talk about the reasons why we keep coming back to these things. There's always hope, right? There is always hope that you might go out and go to the reading and it might actually be good. And sometimes it is, but not in these examples.
Nice to see you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, yeah. Thanks for doing it. So are you settled in? Or I mean, I know it can be stressful when you're rushing in somewhere to.
That's okay. No, I'm fine. It's a pretty quiet morning, all things considered. I was just running a little bit late.
Okay.
I have a bit of a bum knee, so I couldn't run for the trolley and make the one I wanted. So I had to limp and stand around throwing the baseball for a while with my son, waiting for the next one, which put us in there late. And then, then I take a bus and whatever. So it's fine. I'm usually here a bit before 9, but today I got in a bit after.
Okay. And it's funny. I mentioned you because I was talking to my dad and stepmom were in town recently, and I don't know where this came from, but she was saying that she thought she'd heard somewhere that there was you know what, she's in real estate, but they deal with like home decoration stuff, and apparently, like, to some meaningful degree, there's now just like a significant move away from people keeping books in their house.
Yeah, there could be, although we're seeing it sort of an opposite effect right now, where leather-bound sets are starting to pick up again, and decorators want them. And that might be just a sign that there are more people with very large houses and multiple large houses that need some appointing, so to speak.
Right.
The room needs a little something. So leather-bound sets are those ones you see where it's sort of a fancy binding, Dickens or Mark Twain or what have you, Jane Austen. They're never read, they're always in pristine condition because no one has ever taken them down and actually read them.
Gatsby style, yeah.
And so they were popular from the late 19th to the early 20th century was when they were in vogue. Yeah. Some of the authors were still alive. Others were from slightly earlier periods or significantly earlier in the case of Shakespeare. And people there was a vogue for, in the Gilded Age and after to the Roaring '20s of people wanting these walls of books that emulate after a fashion, the sort of notion of the English country gentleman's library, which would be more likely to be much older first and second editions in calfskin with a family armorial binding by the bindery they use. And then so there was a vogue of that. So, but yeah, as for like not having books around, I mean, my sister is a librarian. I don't think she has any books in her house.
Why? That's crazy.
I think she uses a digital reader.
Ah,
And I
okay.
think
So
most,
that's yeah, yeah.
maybe in her library, they've been moving away from physical books as well, where she works. I think that's happening a lot. Two, they're focusing more on having more computer stations for people to work in, or general meeting areas is a thing that a lot of libraries, academic libraries especially, are doing, where it's sort of like a Starbucks, where you can get a coffee and sit around and bring your
Yeah,
laptops out
yeah,
and
yeah.
talk. But the notion of lots of books that people are going to go back and pull out and take out maybe isn't quite as prominent as it was.
Huh.
I don't know. So,
She,
but my house is just overrun with books. But then, my
right. Yeah,
brother and
yeah, yeah.
his wife, they still have some books in a case in the basement, but they used to have a lot of books around. Now they read digitally as well. So they do read a lot, but
Right,
they
right, right.
just don't want the books around. My wife
Yeah.
doesn't want all of the books I have. Like, it's just far too many.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Michael Durda and I have had many enlivening conversations about this, and it's a natural response. It's like she says, "Where are we going to put them? Where are they going to go? You have too many books." And so mine aren't just to appoint a room; they're there to be read, and so they tend to
Right,
proliferate. And my poem Cover to Cover starts, "I don't collect them; they just accumulate."
right.
So that's how
Yeah,
it
yeah,
works.
yeah. Like a highbrow version of kipple. Do you know the concept of a kipple?
No, what is that?
It's a Philip Dick term. The idea it's sort of like, if you know the Thomas Ligotti story, The Red Tower. The idea is, it's like, if you have a certain amount of, like, valueless made in China crap around your house, then it's like a parthenogenesis. It begins to
Oh,
reproduce. So
on
over
its
time,
own.
kipple just begets more
I get
kipple.
that. Yeah, sort of like tribbles in Star Trek,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
You turn
yeah.
around and there's 10 more, sort of.
It's funny. I had not thought about it, but you're right, because there is a. I mean, I think my mom's dad was a little bit of a combination of, like, a lawyer and a reader, but also a kind of a striver who wanted to distinguish his adult life from his poorer childhood, and so had a lot of those leather bound editions. But even, like, I think the association I always had was they're for rich people and or people trying to prove something. But it's funny, like, I had they're not leather bound, but I have my dad's Harvard Classics set, which takes up a whole bookcase, and it's got a lot of great stuff in it. But I realized, like, I've read from it before, but most of the stuff in it I have another copy of that's just easier to use. So I, like,
Right,
even though I do read some of the stuff that's in there, I almost never read those editions, because
right.
they're really better at they're better at appearing on a shelf than they are at being used.
We are regularly offered for sale. People have that shelf of
Yeah,
classics,
yeah.
a number of things like that, where we just have, as far as I know, there's no current interest in them. And that goes for encyclopedias. I mean, there's the 11th edition, I believe,
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
Britannica is considered a notable one, but even that, just the amount of space it takes, it's just really not worth carrying, unless you're a real completist of wanting all the great books, so to speak. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, and even today, you still have, you see ads in the New Yorker for the Folio Society. They do make some pretty attractive books. I do enjoy older Folio Society ones or limited editions club reading. The other day I pulled out a Coleridge, and it's nice, beautiful, heavy, creamy paper and beautiful typesetting. And I went to reread because my knee's hurting me. I read This Linebaugh, My Prison. I thought I'd pull that down and read that because I was missing out on something, and I thought I will connect with Coleridge's notion of still being emotionally with the people that you can't be with, and how that's meaningful as well. So I like those, but they take up a lot of space, and I'm not sure. I don't think they're generally read. And you have the whole Easton Press thing, which are really uncollected. I mean,
What's the
nobody there.
Easton? What is that?
It's also the Franklin Library is a
Okay.
similar thing. It's defunct now. You might remember the Franklin Mint. Have you ever
Yeah,
heard
yeah,
of that?
yeah.
So they make sort of
Commemorative.
quote unquote collectible things.
Yeah, yeah,
So when I was young, they have television commercials for tiny Chinese vases from different dynasties. So you
yeah.
start with the Ming vase, and it comes with a free thing on and then each month they charge you a subscription fee, like they used to do for CDs, for
Yeah,
instance,
yeah.
and you would get a new tiny vase of a different dynasty to put in there. And they did the same thing with chess sets. There was a Civil War chess set where you start with Grant and Lee, and then you gradually start to get other ones
They
until
would produce, they would like send you
a
individual
different one each
pieces,
month.
or
Yeah. Yeah.
okay,
So they're prefab collectible. It gave you the impression
right,
of collecting without actually having to collect.
right, and with a
That's what they would
guarantee
do.
that you could get the whole set.
Right. And
Right.
well, then the trick was also my stepdad used to work for them. He's like, you wait 3 or 4 installments, then you make them an offer they can't refuse on all the rest all at once. Because
Right.
if you're collecting chess pieces one a month, do the math. You can't play the set for quite a while.
Yeah.
You can pull these up on YouTube. They're very fun to watch. But anyway, the Franklin Library was the equivalent of that, where it's really a gaudy pseudo-Victorian spine, cheap. It's not real leather.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we call it pleather, but it's there is a term for it, but it's some kind of synthetic thing, and it's got this really shiny gilt all over it, and it's almost like it's like a mockery of what a nice binding from an earlier era would be.
Yeah.
And it has the sort of like gold edges and the little silk tie to hold your place
Right.
that no
Right.
one ever
Yeah.
uses. So you see those at auction where there's 20 of them in a lot and it goes, it's $50 is the bid.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so that's what that is. So no, these sorts of non-readable books still it's like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
a notional book, which
Right.
is kind of funny. Yeah.
Which is really like, it's funny that I hadn't thought of it, but that kind of like high concept chess set is really comparable because my dad has like a beautiful Bauhaus chess set, and I saw it Elijah's house. They have this gorgeous like stone Aztecs and Spaniards chess set. Like they're often beautiful and kind of brilliantly conceived, but I
Yeah.
realize like they're hard to fucking use because it's like
Yeah.
it's hard to tell the pieces apart correctly, and you don't want to have to be rethinking everything every time you're calculating a move.
Yep.
So they're really best for being set up and being looked at.
Right. So we went to the Frank Lloyd Wright Falling Water House
Yeah, yeah.
recently on a break on spring break with my son, and in the gift shop they have a set that he designed, which is again, it's very
I'm sure it's
abstracted
beautiful.
from
Yeah.
what these figures should be, right? And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to say the rook, instead of being a keep, is an elephant with a castle on its back, but this is going beyond that to where it's just sort of, a shape.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And afterwards, my wife saw me looking up copies online to see if I could find, a used one or something. She's like, absolutely not, because they're hundreds of dollars.
Right,
And
yeah.
I already have a bunch like that for my son, which are, you're right. There's sometimes, I mean, I have the Lewis chess set reproduction, which is
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, yeah.
And
It's
that's pretty easy
beautiful. Yeah,
to
yeah.
use. A knight looks like a knight.
Right.
But then I've bought him other ones that I have found at auction where sometimes the pieces are so big they don't fit on most of the boards.
Squares,
So they're
right? Yeah.
bulging around and you can't be
Yeah, yeah.
sure which spot they're on. And he's in
Right.
chess club and he's really very good now. I can't play him anymore because he just beats me so consistently. It's not really fun. Or he knows how to wind it down to like he is like a bulldog at chess now,
Yeah,
and he
yeah.
knows he's trying to teach me, and I'm not learning very well. So, but yeah, it's like that. So there's the faux chess set, there's the faux book. It's just like the object, but not for the use that you would originally have used it for.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and there's a kind of a funny like happy medium between the hyper literal chess piece and the hyper abstracted, where you kind of want like what has become the convention is the middle ground. It
Right.
sort of resembles what it's supposed to be, but it's still fairly abstracted. It's just a recognizable
Right.
shape.
And as for these collectible books, John Updike has a character, Henry Beck,
Oh,
right, which is supposed to be a Philip Roth type of
okay.
New York, somewhat neurotic novelist, and these pieces have been collected into the Beck books. There's a number of them, and they're very amusing. And so at one point, his ego is always sort of, going up and down. He's very fragile, and so he's giving a reading at a college somewhere, and there's someone who lives near there who keeps sending copies of his first editions for him to sign and mail back, as people do, that you
Yeah,
send
yeah.
postage paid. And he thinks, I'll give them a big treat. I'll stop in and they'll meet the author himself. They'll be really impressed. So he goes to this neighborhood. It's on a hill. It's probably like sort of like a Scranton, Pittsburgh, sort of, industrial Pennsylvania town. And there's the steep street with the row homes. And he knocks on the door and he hears a television really loud inside. And this young guy opens it. He's like, yeah. And he's like, I'm Henry Beck, the author. And the guy's like, I have no idea who you are. And he's like, well, you've sent me books to sign and first editions. He's like, oh, he's like, Ma. Mother comes downstairs. She's like, what? And he's like, I'm the author. And she's like, so? And he looks around. There's no books in this house. And he's trying to figure out what's going on. And finally they say, oh no, we're just doing that as an investment. And they pull the whole closet back and it's stacked with sort of every type of Norman Mailer,
Right.
all
Any
those
popular novelist. Yeah.
guys. They don't read them. They just mail them. When they come out, they buy them, they mail them, get them signed, put them away in the hopes of selling them for a profit in the future. But they have no interest in the books as something to read. And then another scene is where he is offered something that's like Easton Press or the Franklin Library. They say, we'd like to, they get the rights to his second book. His sophomore effort was sort of a flop, failed to follow up on his big first hit. They get the rights for cheap and they say, we'd like to put out a special edition. And, we'll give you this much money and a weekend in Puerto Rico, I believe it is. And so he's dating someone and he thinks this will turn the relationship around. I'll offer her a weekend in Puerto Rico and we'll go to this resort. And they get there and they realize they have shipped, I think it's something like 10,000 sheets for him to sign, right? So he starts signing and signing and signing, and his hand is cramped. He's got ice on it. Then his girlfriend starts signing his name. Then they start getting the maids to come in and sign his name. Okay, they just can't get through the 10,000 copies that they then tip in when they publish it. So you say, I have a signed edition, but it was
Right.
never touched by the author. It's like tipped in.
Yeah.
As the case with these is the case with these signed limited editions. And it's said that Salvador Dali did the same thing. He would
Yeah. Yeah.
well, he would sign thousands of blank sheets
Canvases.
that you
Yeah.
could put any
Yeah.
image on later
Right.
if you wanted to. And it was also rumored that he had his friends doing some of the signing just because they had so many. So when people said there's forgeries out there for a while, what was really happening, I believe, was just that he himself was just trying to mint money
They were authorized forgeries.
out of there. They were like authorized
Yeah.
because his wife had an expensive lifestyle, as did he. She had like a big castle in Spain, and he was living, in a penthouse on Central Park, and they were living rock star lifestyles. You gotta keep the money coming in, right? So
Yeah.
that's how it worked.
So you sent this essay over that I was very, very glad you shared. I think Alice and I both really enjoyed it. This was in the Times Literary Supplement recently, and it's a survey of some recollections of poetry readings you've been to, emceed, supervised, witnessed, participated in varying ways. And yeah, I was eager to talk with you about it because it's both like just a great set of little up until now anecdotes, little stories, little experiences and observations, but it also sort of helps. Like I was thinking, it identifies the multiple dimensions in which a poetry reading can go wrong. That like you have to sort of control for. There's like the problems with amateurs. There's the problems with professionals. There's the problems with venues. There's the problems with audience.
Yeah.
In one case, there's the problem with location. Just the fact that it takes place in Baltimore is like, I felt like I immediately was like, all right, this feels very familiar, and to me, strangely heartwarming, despite being a total shit show.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that as with any field, gossip is something that brings people together. And so when you get together with poets, often people share stories of, I can't believe, and regularly poets will DM me or call me if they trust me as someone that they can confide in. And they'll say, I just had to talk to somebody about this awful situation with my publisher, with another poet, with, something like this, a student, a professor, whatever it is. Over the years, I've told all these stories and many more about
Yeah.
reading. Okay. And you probably have too.
Yeah.
And I tend to get really animated when I'm telling the stories and I do impressions and I act it out. So people have, for years, said, you should write an essay about this. It would be funny. And I thought, well, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I don't want. So for one thing, I don't use names ever, even the names of
Right, right,
stores.
right. Yeah,
Michael Dirda, when he read this in the TLS road, said, I think I know which store you're talking about. And he was wrong. Now, the one he was describing might have been just another example of the same
yeah,
thing. And I'm not going to say the name of it or the names of the people involved. And so there was that. So if I look back through my notebooks over the years, I see lists of essays I want to write given time
yeah,
and
yeah,
energy. And readings gone wrong is what I've always called this. And so it's been kicking around for a very long time.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And then I've even sketched it out a few times. So there are a few false starts because it is a sensitive subject, everyone in the poetry world wants to be taken very seriously. This is
yeah.
one of the problems, right? Is the
Right.
level of, and I'm no different. I have felt these things too, the level of self-importance or earnestness that this is my calling and this is something that is really important. It's not to be trifled
Yeah,
with.
yeah. And you make
And
fun of yourself, I think, at the end, kind of like
of
that. Like
course I
there's
do.
the circumstance you're dealing with is absurd, but like sort of your response is one that is just understandably kind of indignant, and and
Right.
having
I was, I was bemused, but also increasingly agitated by it all.
yeah,
So I also had to work the next day, so that adds a new level of
yeah,
pressure. And you're
yeah,
in another city, and you haven't eaten, and I mean, at least you're handed that pineapple at the end. But like, so, which is funny if you see. I myself didn't make this connection when I saw the TLS piece, and there's a pineapple shouting into a microphone.
yeah.
You see that art that
Right,
they
right,
put
right.
at the
Yeah, yeah,
top,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and it's pretty amusing.
yeah. But that's not
And it's something that was put together specifically for, obviously, for this. And I failed to remember to realize they put that there because of
because it
the
ends on a
pineapple
pineapple.
incident at
Yeah.
the end, which we can mention. So anyway, so I've had many false starts with this. And then Camille Ralphs is one of the literary editors for the TLS, and
Mhm.
her book Before You Were, I Am came out from Faber, and then the next year it was in America as a McSweeney's publication. So she was doing readings all over on both coasts. And because she was going to be at Johns Hopkins as well as in Boston and New York, a mutual acquaintance, I had never met her, suggested to her she reach out to me and see. And so I said, yeah, you can stay in our office at home. We have a bed there, and I'll set up a reading for you and all this. So that night after the reading was over, we were drinking wine and hanging out on the back porch, and I was telling these stories. She's like, you should write that up." And I thought, oh well, for once, someone's saying that who can do something about it.
Right. Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah,
I was
yeah.
afraid I'd write it and no one would ever want to publish
Yeah.
it. And so also because it's a guest essay for the TLS, it can't be too long
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
whereas my tendency, if I really went into all the stories, I could practically write a book.
Yeah.
So then I was kind of dragging my heels. I didn't have time, blah, blah, blah. And then I was in November, I was in September. And then in November, I was in Oxford to give a reading with Alicia Stallings at Teddy Hall. That was great and went really well. And the next night she took me, she's as professor of poetry at Oxford, she's a fellow at All Souls College,
Okay.
which doesn't have any students. It's only scholars and fellows.
Oh, okay. So it's like the Institute for Advanced
Yeah,
Studies.
it's something like that. And so she took me to the very sort of elaborate, eyes wide shut sort of dinner there. And and it was great. But she at one point she like slapped my shoulder and she's like, if she asks you to write that, you need to write that. You need to do it as soon as possible.
Yeah, yeah,
Don't take that and walk away from it. And so when she
yeah.
chided me, I started writing it as soon as I got back to the United States.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah. Well,
and
I'm,
went
I'm
over.
glad.
And
I'm glad
so
you did. Yeah.
and with very, very minor edits, they put it through. I mean, I have other stories I could tell. I was trying to do ones that are sort of mildly amusing. I actually held back. There was far more wrong in most of these situations
Yeah,
than
yeah,
what I'm revealing. And
yeah.
so it's
Yeah,
a little
yeah.
Norman Rockwell compared to what I would if I just let loose. I'd also seem maybe mean-spirited or what
Right,
have
right,
you.
right.
But there
Yeah,
were
yeah.
other things going on that
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into that maybe twice as much as what I revealed that made
Yeah,
these things
yeah, yeah.
a little bit crazy. The story that I told her I could write next if she wanted, although maybe we don't really need a, you know, a son of poetry readings gone bad, or the Electric Boogaloo Part Two. I mean, we don't really need a follow up, maybe, but I can tell you about that if you wanted to hear about that. I was
Yeah, for sure.
there were there were two. You can cut this or move it to the secret show or whatever. I'm a subscriber, so it's
Sure,
like
yeah.
it's okay. This is pretty minor, but it was like just funny. So I gave a reading in Oxford back in 2013 or something. And I had been over there for the London book fairs, and then went up to Oxford. And so this young man. I don't remember how he got in touch with me. I don't really know him. I never heard from him since, but he invited me. He was at St. John's College, and he invited me to come for the reading and to stay there at St. John's College that night, which I did with a friend of mine who's a scientist. He's English and he loves literature, but he has a clearer-eyed view of it all because
Yeah.
he's not actually an artist. He's a scientist. So, he and I shared this really huge, very cold, high-ceilinged room over the quad, over the main quad, and that was great. And then the reading was over there in what's called Jericho. It's was a place called the Albion Beatnik bookstore, which is not there anymore. And it was a weird lineup of there were four of us. No two of us were even remotely similar. I'm all for that kind of variety.
Yeah.
I don't like it when people clump together in schools to support each other as if you're not one of them, you won't get it and that will offend them or something like that. I do
Right.
like that, but it was a bizarrely misfit group. And one of the guys, he was an anarchist poet, and he
Sure.
was a really sort of like angry anti-establishment guy, which is great. And the problem is, so we're in this bookstore, and there is no stage. It just goes up a little bit in the back, and there's a door, and that's the bathroom. And so where we're supposed to stand and read
God.
is directly in front of the bathroom, facing everyone. And he had this thing, which he might have even told me. I know other poets who have it, where they get so excited or anxious before reading, they have to go to the bathroom several times, or it happens. Because there's,
Yeah.
when little kids get excited and they run to the
Yeah.
bathroom, Sorry, I'm getting scatological.
So he
But
needs
anyway,
to go first, right? He needs to go first.
well, no. So someone else is going first.
Man.
He runs into the bathroom.
Oh, God.
And there's no microphone. While the person's there reading, it's just the loudest fanfare of just
Oh, God.
flatulent,
Oh, no.
slapping, loud noise coming from right there, 3 feet away from behind this thin door. And the person is trying to keep a straight face, reading her
Oh,
poems
God. Which is
while
just,
this
it's
is
a
going on.
hopeless
Some people are
interview.
trying to ignore it like it's not happening.
Oh, God.
And
That's a
afterwards,
nightmare.
ever after, my friend refers to it as the night of the shitting poets.
Right.
Only one was, but I mean, it was just like so hilarious.
Oh, God.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I don't think they'd want to use that, but there was the biggest one of all is this one in Montreal where I was invited, and it was going to be, I think, five of us reading at so the governor's address is done from this library. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Well, if I remember, I'll tell you. Anyway, I thought, oh, well, that sounds pretty fancy. I'd be happy to do that. That sounds nice. So I go up with my wife, and my book, Caligulin, was about to come out. She was pregnant with our son, Ian. And we get there, and we meet the person who is organizing it, who's a poet himself and a musician, but also a popular local distributor of drugs. And
Oh,
so
okay.
what I didn't realize is that these readings were they were for poetry, but also for people coming together to buy from him. So he's already wired. So we go and have like some lunch with some of the other poets. He can't stand still. He's just walking back and forth and can't make eye contact, and he's just
Mm.
been up for days. Okay. And so we get to the library, which is on this park. God, I can't believe I don't remember the name of this library. And it was locked. And so this crowd gathers on the lawn of the library. And then you have all the poets, and you have a distinguished Canadian publisher and his wife are there, and people are getting agitated. Like, what are we going to do? And he's like, I don't know what's going on. It's locked. It's locked. The guy's supposed to be here to open it up. And the sun's going down.
Yeah.
He's calling, and there's no one there. So ball got dropped at some point. Is it the Atwater Library? Hold on. I think that Atwater. It is
Okay.
the Atwater.
All right.
Okay.
And this crowd
So
is
they
there
say,
not
look,
just for the reading, but for
all sorts of
his.
reasons. Yeah. So it's
But
like,
for, like, okay, but he's like, this is also where he plies his trade.
as far as I can tell,
Oh,
yes.
okay,
And
okay,
so he, that's what seems to be happening. So he's like, let's just find another place. So I'm like, why not? Whatever. So we walk around the corner and find a grassy knoll. And
yeah,
there is a V of benches there where a performance could take place on the grass. Okay. Everyone gathers, you get everyone in the benches, everyone's there, and then the poets are going to come up and you just stand there and the sun's going down, so you kind of need like the light on your phone to see your book
right,
and you're doing this. So we start, and then some police, like maybe military police actually, come and say, you're not allowed to, this is government property and you are not allowed to be on it. And so he runs over, he's like, it's a poetry reading, it's a poetry reading, just let us, we're almost done, but we had really just begun.
yeah, yeah.
So the police said, we're going to walk around the corner and go around the block. And when we're back, you have to be off. So the guy in front of me is reading a poem that is an epic, a book-length epic about the founding of one of the Canadian provinces. And when you're waiting to go up and read, and it just seems like the person in front of you is going on forever. And maybe you're a little anxious because you're about to get up and do your own thing, and you hope it goes
Yeah,
well. And you're like, why is this person not heeding the
yeah.
time
Did you
limit?
just
And
feel
they're
him
just,
burning up all the goodwill of the
I'm
audience?
just like, and I'm like, but here, there is a real time limit. We're going to
Right,
be
right, yeah.
thrown off of here with force. And so another guy who was supposed to be the last to read had recently been released from a mental health facility. Okay. And he saw himself as the modern rebirth of sort of Dante. He was very fiery. I'll send you a picture. I wound up helping him so that he could see his stuff later. But anyway, he was supposed to be the last one to read, and his whole life was culminating in this moment to
Oh
give
no.
this reading. He's finally going to do it. And he went back into care not long after this. I
Oh
think
no.
maybe the next day.
This tipped him over the edge.
So I'm waiting. I'm like, please, come on, finish up. So then I see the cops have come back around and they've brought more. They brought friends. And they're all standing around eyeing the situation, and people are getting agitated in the audience. And I get up and I start reading my poems, and I know that the time is limited, and I'm sort of
Yeah.
like the sun's going down behind me, and I sort of have my phone light to read, and I'm going as fast as I can to get through the set.
Oh man.
And then I'm halfway through one of my poems, and I just see all these police charging at us, and I'm like,
Jesus.
goodbye. And I book, I grab my wife, we run. I'm like, I don't want to be part of what's going to happen here if anybody stays. And so we get cleared out, right? Everybody disappears into the dusk, into the gloaming, except for a clutch of the poets and a few of their sort of hangers on who cross the street and are standing against the side of the library here, blocking the sidewalk, but at least no longer on
Right.
government property. Okay. And that's when the guy finally he's really wants to read. He's trying to do it from memory. And there's a photo of me. If I can find it, I'll send it to you. Standing behind him with my phone, and just the look on his face of just pure poetic passion that he's reading to the remaining 10 people gathered in the darkness there on the side of this building. And I was like, this is an amazing night. This is
Yeah.
really wild. And so we go out and have some drinks and some food afterwards. Lynn is, her tolerance for poets is sort of diminishing by the minute.
Yeah.
I take her back to the hotel, but everyone else stays out all night. And they tell me that they wound up by dawn, like there was a rave under a railroad trestle somewhere where they found themselves. And so everyone else is just partying all night. I'm
Yeah.
back at the hotel, but we're supposed to meet for brunch the next day. A few of us, the poets anyway, and this publisher. And we get there. And so the girlfriend of the organizer, who's younger than him, she's a graduate student. She looks very worried. And I said, where is he? She's like, when I came here, I had to leave him. He was completely naked, spread eagled, spread out like a starfish on the living room floor, clutching in one hand a pack of cigarettes and in the other a guitar. And she's distraught. And I said, that is the most rock star thing I've ever heard of a poet
Right.
doing,
Yeah.
which kind of relaxed her a little bit. Like I said, like,
Right.
it's actually kind of cool if you look at it in the right light. But he had hit a wall. He was no longer conscious. Uh,
I was going to say it's really satisfying if you're not the one living with them.
oh yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
so he is, and that was back in 2015. He is no longer alive.
Oh
But
man.
that was the scene, and so I was like, wow, before becoming a dad, I did one last
Punk
really,
rock
that's
kind
probably
of.
not the last crazy thing I did, but the last really
Yeah.
thing that my wife's gonna put up with and be there for, and that was the Montreal situation.
Fiasco. But the
Fiasco,
but
yeah,
I mean what most impresses me is the little crowd of audience that stuck around, that
yeah.
like there was a commitment on their end as well. It wasn't
Oh,
just the deluded poets, trying to,
oh no, there was a big audience, and it was, and even the ones who stayed, it was probably 10 or 15 after the police had chased everyone out, and one of those was a photographer,
yeah,
and I gave him a copy of my book and one of my books anyway. And he's like, I really want to pay you back. I want to take I'll take a portrait of you, And I was like, I do need a new
yeah, yeah.
author photo. And so I took down his information. And the next day, Lynn and I went out to some, far reach of the city. And he was great. He took a really nice photo of me that I still use. It's a little outdated now, but it's such a great photo. I hate not to use it. And so there were just interesting people, who were hanging around. Yeah. And some of these poets
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
personally.
Sure.
You know who they are.
Right.
Some of them, others you've never heard of,
Right.
and you know who the publisher is. But again, I don't use any names, so
Yeah,
that's
but these are people who have a like. I mean, to me, it was funny like reading through this essay and thinking about just my own experience with good and bad readings. There's like it feels like they're kind of two large categories of problems that emerge. One is just like logistical problems, where you have, as you said, like the oops, we're doing really loud construction and the air conditioning's out, and
yeah. And the library's closed.
right, the library's closed, there's the train's late, etc. But then the other category, and I feel like the kind of the more crucial crisis that emerges with readings is a mismatch between what one group of people present, like the degree of investment or seriousness of one group of
Right.
people present and that of the another. Like
Mhm.
usually the mismatch is that the poets take what they're doing way more seriously than the audience does, but there are degrees of this. And I mean, I think like in Australia, as I've talked to Alice about, like there's so much of a cultural understanding that you should never get caught taking yourself seriously. That sort of everybody is leaning really hard in
Right.
the other direction. But like I'm in a way I'm interested in the moments when some of that seriousness and some of that commitment comes from the audience's end as well,
Mhm.
which seems to be the case in the group you're talking about. And I mean I think it's probably similar with like small like tightly knit like music scenes where you
Yeah.
have people
Oh
who
yeah.
are sort of committed to not just I'm making art but like we're doing a thing
Right.
together.
Very strong affinities between those two
Yeah,
groups.
yeah, yeah.
Very, very similar. Yeah. And it's like you're part of a scene.
Yeah, so
It's
you
part of
believe in the scene beyond
believe in
this
the scene and the
particular
movement.
performance. Yeah.
Right. And there's an ethos, and there's a shared sensibility, and there's camaraderie and friendship,
Yeah, yeah.
in these things. And sometimes people need that. I mean, we talk about third spaces, right? Where it's not your home, it's not work, it's
Right.
another place where you can be with people. That could be I mean, not to, make it seem dull, but that could be a bowling league instead of a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
artistic movement. The artistic movement will have more fervor, probably. Well, then
Right.
again. But
Yeah.
it's like it is something that stays together. It usually lasts for a certain amount of time and then it breaks apart
Right.
for
Yeah, yeah,
various
yeah.
reasons. People move away, a venue closes, people get older, just like with music, And
Yeah.
so there's definitely that sense. And for the most we have to fear. most of the time, to paraphrase Auden with that. The most we have to fear is boredom
Right.
in a poetry reading. You can
Boredom or
usually,
embarrassment, depending on
or
who,
embarrassed, you
yeah,
might
right.
feel, is there a word for feeling embarrassed for someone else?
I think there's a ContraPoints has a good video essay on the nature of like the essence of cringe. I think this is sort of how
It makes
she,
you, maybe cringe is what it
yeah,
is. And so, or a variety of cringe,
yeah,
one
yeah,
of the
yeah,
varieties of cringe. Yeah, there's definitely that. It's usually more just like I'm having trouble understanding what's going on, or it's really not very good, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
no
yeah,
one
yeah,
can
yeah,
ever say that. But
yeah.
one poet said to me once, he's like, everybody knows. They can tell when one person's just better and more serious than
Right.
some of the
Yeah,
others,
yeah,
but you
yeah,
can't say it because it would hurt
yeah.
people's feelings. And
And you can't all. I mean, the the audible responses of the audience will, you can usually tell the difference between a sincere response and a phony, but there will be still like a significant audible positive response regardless of how awful the poetry is.
and there should be, because they, in some cases, they were brave enough to get up and
Yeah,
overcome
yeah,
their
yeah.
fears and
Yeah,
read.
you're
That's
congratulating the
that's not a
effort.
problem
Yeah.
with. I mean, you get the golf clap response, and then you
Right.
get the woo 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 woo
Yeah, yeah,
kind
yeah.
of long clap. But also, there are people who will hang around these things for a long time and not get up the courage to get up and do it themselves. And I'll often say,
Yeah, yeah,
I'll
yeah.
try to encourage people, and you do want to make them feel welcome and feel that they are valued. That is important, and clapping for them is a valid response to that. Even if you were not that, particularly stimulated by what they did, you're proud of them for doing it and joining in.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. I mean, certainly. And I think it's something I've become more aware of recently is that, I mean, I think I'm, because my inclination is to try to take the making of my work really seriously, but then try to take the presentation of it as lightly as possible. And I
Mhm.
think it's only in the last few years that I've become more aware that like there's beyond the responsibility to like actually be good and not go overtime and
Yeah.
be audible and
Mhm.
do a competent job without taking yourself too seriously. There is to some extent a responsibility that you have and it's the same I think that you have with like teaching poetry to help create and cultivate some of the magic for the listeners that I think like I've only recently become aware that there are like I think there's some very very self-serious poets. I think you tend to have a pretty good balance of taking yourself lightly but also being willing to sort of commit to the seriousness of the moment as like you're helping the audience believe that this is something serious. And I think
Right.
I've had to learn recently from people saying like, hey, you should make it sound like you take your own poems more seriously because it helps the audience say like, okay,
Yeah.
we're sort of like
Yeah.
you want the priest to be serious when he's doing the
Right.
ceremony, like we're all doing something and it actually does matter.
Right. If you're too self-deprecating, they might be confused and think that that's true.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
my
That's
poems aren't.
yeah.
I don't mean
No, no,
you in
but there was
particular.
I think it was who was it? God, somebody was it Schopenhauer? Somebody sent me a thing the other day where it was the line was, oh, it was Schopenhauer who said like when an artist is too modest, I begin. He's always at risk of making me believe him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
something. So it's a fine line. One of the worst things is when people think they're going to be funny and they have something that they say where people would even laugh politely if they were aware that it was supposed to be funny. But
right.
then it just goes past them and it isn't inherently funny, or the person's nervous so it doesn't come across in a way that makes
Yeah,
people want to
yeah,
laugh.
yeah, yeah,
Never try to make people laugh. If it's a side effect of what you do, that's great.
yeah.
Unless you're a really funny person. I mean,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
hey,
yeah,
light verse and humorous poetry are really hard to do, and I think it's great if someone can do that.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I enjoy it in the audience when I can do it. I think it's just you have to be careful trying to do that.
Are you
you
drawing a
know?
distinction though between trying to make somebody laugh with your poetry or making somebody laugh with your patter?
Both.
Both. Okay,
Either.
so you would say
Or
don't even
either.
try to make them laugh with the patter.
Either. Yeah.
Okay,
I
all
mean,
right.
sometimes if you rush through it too fast and it doesn't have the right, you know how it is. It's like
Yeah,
comedy's
yeah,
tough. It is delivery, delivery, delivery.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Three people can deliver the same joke and only one of them lands.
Right. Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
and I wonder if we can extrapolate from that and say three people can read the same poem and only one of them lands. You
Yes.
know what
Oh,
I'm
for
saying?
sure. I think that's definitely true.
Someone
Yeah.
who inhabits the poem. I mean, the thing that helped me years ago was, which I still try to do, is memorizing poems,
Yeah.
classic poems.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it forces you to really understand how they work rhetorically, not
Right.
just rhetorically and prosodically.
Yeah.
You notice things about them that you didn't notice before you
Yeah.
memorized
Yeah. Yeah. And
them.
misremembering them and then correcting yourself will help identify like, okay, but so why is it this word and
Yeah,
not the one I
exactly.
thought it
Could I
was? Yeah.
use that? Or could I,
Yeah.
and it's like taking your car engine apart, right? It's like you understand.
Mm.
I don't know anything about my car engine. I
No.
couldn't do anything about it. But so if you were going to design a car, you should know how to do that. And so if you're going to write a poem, I think really getting, I hate this phrase, but getting under the hood of a poem that works or has stood the test of time, so to speak, really helps you understand your own. But back to delivery, I mean, that's just something that, some people have, some people don't. I don't
Yeah.
know. I
Yeah.
mean, you can be we've discussed this before, I'm sure, an excellent poet who simply isn't very good at giving readings,
Oh, yeah.
and someone who just has the knack for getting up and being charismatic and amusing,
Yeah.
who is not necessarily a standout as an artist, you
Yeah,
know.
I was talking
So
with Daniel Cowper yesterday about Amanda Gorman. I think is a great example of like
yeah,
very talented performer.
right,
The writing isn't it doesn't interest me, but like
right.
she's got presence, and
A
there
huge
are
amount of presence. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. So I mean so that's something to discuss. But as for poetry readings going wrong, it's like if we're staying on topic, it's a miracle they happen at all anymore, And so part of when I'm happy, when I'm laughing, I'm happy to be there, and I'm happy that people are taking a moment to listen to me. So there is genuine happiness, but there's also a sense of humor that I have about the sheer absurdity of our dedication in
yeah,
the current era to something like this, to something that is an ancient art form that you have to spend so much energy. I mean, there are some institutions that that do this. They don't do it for very many people. You kind of have to make your own world, which I think is the
yeah,
best way to do it. Create a reading series, to be a publisher, an editor. You've done these things.
yeah,
And to commit yourself to this, I mean, you have to be part of it in order to get some kind of recompense from it, really. I mean, you can't, there's the Byronic notion that I'm just an artist. Someone else is going to take care of everything and pick up the pieces for me.
right, yeah, but yeah,
No one needs very many people like that. You need a huge structure
yeah,
to accommodate someone like that. So
right,
it's like the whole thing of like back when albums still sold and you have like crazy rock stars in the 70s to the 90s. It's like if the person's selling a lot of records, everyone's there to support them as crazy as they are if you're Axl Rose or whomever, right?
yeah,
But that structure has to be there for that person to have all the people wandering around behind them picking up the pieces. Poetry doesn't have that, right?
yeah,
So to be, someone who says, I'm not going to organize any of this for myself. Other people are going to publish me. They're going to give me readings. They're going to boost me up. They're going to talk about me. They're going to worship me. How many people can get away with that these days?
yeah.
There's no establishment system for them to work in.
Well, and you're not, and if an audience is going to have that kind of relationship to an artist, it's probably not going to be somebody who just writes poetry for the page. It's going to be any number of other kinds
You're
of
famous
artists or
because of, yeah, your
creators.
memoir, because you're a
Or you're
celebrity.
you're on TikTok. Yeah.
Or yeah, or you're on social media platforms and you do well there.
There is, I was trying to think like there is something. It's so easy to make fun of poetry readings, and it's so easy for them to be bad, and it's so rare for them to be really, really good. But I
Right.
think like if there is something kind of special about the sort of smallish poetry reading, the smallish non-celebrity poetry reading where there's not really a lot of money involved, or, at best there's sort of like defrayed travel costs or something, then it's a kind of like a mutually agreed upon vulnerability that you're not, neither are you worshiping a group worshiping an artist from a distance, nor are you leering at voyeuristically at a freak. You're kind of, you've both bought in a little bit. I mean, it's like,
Right.
it's funny, an experience. It's taken me a second to kind of digest what my reaction is, but like I published this chapbook recently, and it has some sort of personal stuff in it, and I realize like there's a particular kind of response that bothers me, that I just in exchanges with a couple people, I've gotten this sense that there's I don't mind the pure dry technical response. I don't mind the Goodreads 1-star review, which I keep getting more of.
Oh, no.
I know, I feel like I've done, I have like a formidable percentage of my reviews are 1-star, which I take as I feel like nobody bothers to do for the new chapbook. Nobody bothers to 1-star a poetry chapbook unless
Is that like a vendetta against you?
I don't. Well,
usually
it's
see
something.
that,
It's
like
something
someone
because
has it out for the person.
and it's like out of proportion with other rattle chapbooks, and it's so there's some. What I again, like, I've chosen to take that as a compliment, but I think the thing that annoys me some is a kind of a leering response.
Right.
Response that
Because it
says
has,
like
I've read it and I
yeah,
have it.
I
I've
feel
read
like
the reviews too.
I'm savoring your vulnerability without buying in myself. And
Right.
to me, that feels like, like, fine, fair enough, but like no longer is there any kind of communion between us as reader and writer. That's, you're doing something else. So like
Right.
I'm checked out. It feels like with the poetry reading, you've kind of both agreed to, like, this could be very embarrassing for either of us. And like, we're
Right.
both going to sort of say like, all right, here we are. Let's like, we're checking into the sauna. Let's do this together.
You enter into a contract.
Yeah.
And like and for all the ones that might seem like something has gone wrong, the best poetry readings, there've been many of these. I've either been one of the readers, the host, or just someone in the audience. The feel is so good. There's
Yeah.
just something.
Yeah.
Everyone's smiling, everyone's engaged, everyone's clapping, everyone's really excited to be there, to talk to each other before and after. It's
Yeah.
packed. You get those nights and you're like, wow, this is makes me feel so good. And I used to, when I hosted the series, the last period I hosted the series I had was with John Walbarger, and he told me once something that I could connect with. He said, I can't sleep the nights after those. I am up all night.
Yeah.
I said, I can't sleep either. And the reason is your brain is processing so many emotional interactions with people.
Yeah.
So many people you talk to, so many things you heard from the stage. So it
Yeah.
really, like, you take a while to process it all.
And you
And
feel connected to,
you
like,
feel
in an
super
intense
connected.
way to a bunch of
And you
people.
feel there's just a huge amount of information, not raw data, I mean emotional information
Yeah.
that you're trying to get through, that your brain is trying to work its way through. And I'm like, yeah, you need that once in a while. I don't want it every day, but
No, you're right. Yeah.
you need that. So there is an almost quasi religious, if you will, or
Yeah.
ritualistic or ceremonial element to the whole thing. And those are the best. So,
Yeah.
but I wasn't asked to write about the
No.
best because they're not
Right.
as amusing. They're
Right.
just
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
sorry you weren't there. You had to be there.
And
You know what I'm
it's
saying?
also,
So,
it's in a way like it's easier to identify how things go wrong than, in order for it to go really right, you need for there not to be big logistical problems, but you also really need there to be this ineffable quality.
right.
That's,
You can't control it. It might have to do it with everything from the weather, the political situation,
yeah.
the time of day or night. There's so many things that are impossible to plan for or understand. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I mean, when it works, it works. When it doesn't, it doesn't. And that's just the way life is.
So that is the first 3/4, I would say, of the conversation. But there is a story on The Secret Show that you just have to hear. You have to hear it. It's worth signing up. It's worth subscribing. If you go to sleerickets.substack.com, you can sign up and get a week's access for free. I heard through the grapevine that people are sharing around the link to the secret show, which is kind of cool, but it's also like, it's not even that expensive. You could just sign up if you wanted to. You can even gift a subscription to someone. That's a way to get into somebody's good books. sleerickets.substack.com. Put in your email address. You'll get a week's access for free. You'll also get access to the Substack chat. Plenty going on in there. Opportunities that Matthew posts sometimes. Bit of gossip. Bit of celebrating people's achievements. Claps for people. Always nice. And if you are a Secret Show subscriber and you would like to participate in our Listener Crit series, you can do that, but only if you sign up. I am going to take the opportunity, because there's a little bit of extra time to play with in the Secret Show. I'm going to tell you my stories, my reading stories. They have nothing on Ernie's stories, but I just feel like I want to get them off my chest, so I'm going to do it. So come on over and listen to me there. God, I really have had it easy though. I really have had it easy. I don't know. What is it, Philadelphia? Like, what is the factor here? Why has Ernie experienced so much craziness? Maybe it's just the length of time that he's been doing this stuff. Seriously. Thank you all for listening. You can reach Matthew, as always, at sleerickets@gmail.com. And with any luck, we will all be speaking to you again very soon. Until then.